Hello peoples, welcome back to the channel. This is Bria Makes Art. My name is Becky and we like to play with art. A couple weeks ago I started this 5x4x3 gouache painting challenge where I had this piece of paper that I divided up into 3 rows of 4 across with a little bit of extra down at the bottom. And the idea was that each of those paintings I would give myself a 5-minute time limit just so that I could come down and play with my gouache and not feel really precious about any of these because they were small and I only took 5 minutes on them. I did the first row and you can check out the video. I think it'll be linked like up here to that where I did all of these paintings. I'm not super happy with how any of them turned out. And I think part of it was because of that 5-minute time limit. I felt like I couldn't do a whole lot in that time. So I was rushing myself and feeling really stressed. So this time I'm going to be doing the paintings without the time limit. Figure it's my challenge, my rules. If the time limit was actually hindering me, then let's go ahead and get rid of it, because the reason for doing this was that I played with my gouache more. And if I'm putting rules on myself that's making me play with it less, that's counterproductive. So let's go ahead and get into it.
I decided to try a different angle today for filming, and I didn't realize it until I was halfway through this painting that I had the paper way too close to the camera and you couldn't see anything. So I've actually moved it over a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing now. So hopefully this works.
Today I'm going to be working on water paintings, which is what I had said last video. I said that I wanted to work on my water, so I've got a bunch of references up over here of other water paintings that people have done, and I'm just going to take a little small portion of that and see if I can make the water look the way I want it to, because that's one thing that I would like to be able to paint more and paint a little bit more believably. Maybe realistically, I don't know, but at least believably. I know that when I do it right now, it looks pretty good, but I look at it and I definitely don't believe it as much as I'd like to. I think I said this last time, but I think part of the benefit of doing something like this is it's going to allow me to figure out what my style is. Obviously, it's probably not going to be my style that reaches across all aspects of my art, but at least my painting style, or at least my gouache painting style. Perhaps my painting style would be different between gouache, acrylic, watercolor, etc. But I just kind of want to figure out how I like to do this stuff more, what kind of clicks in my head, what makes sense. I know I've been playing with that with regards to drawing people. I've looked at a whole bunch of different ways that people suggest that you should break down the human form, and I found one that really works for me and I'm really happy with it. And so that was really cool to just try a whole bunch of different ways of doing it, which is what I want to do here with my gouache. Just kind of try different ways of breaking things down and find ones that kind of make sense in my brain. What makes sense in my brain may not make sense in yours, and I think that's kind of a cool thing about art, is there's not necessarily one right way to do it. You've got a lot of freedom and you can try different things and see what works for you. So this is a nice low pressure way of doing that. On top of playing on my own with my paints and trying things out to see what works and what doesn't, I also like to take tutorials to see what other people suggest to do, how they do it, how they explain it, etc. I think that those are all really great ways to learn. I've spent a fair amount of time watching different tutorials on how to paint with gouache, and I've followed some of those along and done the painting myself, and I think that they turn out pretty decently. But one of the things that I want to make sure that I'm doing is I'm practicing those skills outside of the tutorial, so I'm not having to have somebody hold my hand the whole way and tell me, okay, and now do this, and now use this color here, and make sure your brush is this wet, and yada yada yada. I want to make sure that I kind of understand those things in my own mind so that I can apply them to whatever painting I'm working on. And I don't want to necessarily just go off and do another big painting with those skills right away, because I'm afraid that I don't know them well enough and I'm going to ruin the painting. So doing something like this these tiny paintings allow me to really try out different things and practice those skills and make sure that they're kind of ingrained into my brain so that I don't necessarily have to go look it up again, or I don't have to worry about whether I can do the thing or not. I know that I can because I've done it. One of the things that Sarah Burns talks about a lot is getting in that brush mileage, which basically just means practicing, right? Making sure that you kind of really understand your tools. That includes your brushes, your paints, your paper, etc. is really important because, you know, if you really understand your tools, you'll know what the gouache feels like when it's the right consistency. You'll know what the brush feels like when you are doing like a dry brush versus something else. You know how wet to get your paper, etc. So again, these tiny little paintings are a great way to practice all of those things with very low risk because, again, I'm using one piece of paper to get 12 tiny paintings in, so I get to practice a whole bunch of stuff really fast and with low pressure, because if it turns out terribly, I'm using one piece of paper for all of them. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Okay, so I made it through 2 paintings today. They took more than 5 minutes a piece, I'm sure, but I'm much happier with that process than I was giving myself 5 minutes a piece. This is how they turned out. Overall, I would say not too bad, but definitely want to keep working on that. I think the one thing that I don't like is just kind of how I'm representing the foam on the waves. I don't think it's necessarily capturing that foam quite right. I feel like it's a little bit too squiggly and just too random instead of more kind of like bubbles on top of the waves. So I need to work on that. One thing that I did find that worked pretty well for me was actually just taking a white gel pen and drawing them on top. So definitely much more comfortable and familiar with using pens, pencils, that sort of thing than I am with my paintbrush. So definitely we'll just have to keep working on that. Overall, I'm pretty happy. I used up some of the paint that was sitting on my palette over here that I wanted to work on using up, so I'm not wasting it. And I've got 2 little trials of two little trials of water that I can see where I can make improvements. So that's all good. Anyway, I hope you had fun watching and hearing about like why I'm doing things this way, and I will see you guys in next week. Bye.